At our 15th anniversary dinner, my wife raised her glass and turned me into a punchline. "Here's to my husband," she said, tilting her champagne toward the room of 20. Friends, her sister, a couple of my co-workers. The man who still can't be trusted with the dishwasher settings? Polite laughter. A few louder than polite. I smiled the way you do when someone steps on your foot in a crowded elevator and swears it was an accident. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 49. I manage night operations for the City Transit Depot in Columbus, Ohio. For 20 years, I've moved buses like chess pieces so other people can get home. I'm good at it. Steady, invisible, necessary. Across the table, Olivia caught my eye over the rim of her glass. She was beautiful in the way that photographs love. Precise, composed, the kind of face that makes you forget a room has corners. We met when she was an assistant buyer at a department store, and I was still fixing timing chains in my father's garage. We built a life from overtime and coupons and Thursday night takeout when neither of us had the energy to cook. I thought we were partners. "Dan tries," Olivia went on, smirking. "But he needs a project manager for everyday life. Me." More laughter. Her hand slid to my shoulder like punctuation. I sipped water and concentrated on the lemon slice because looking at anyone else felt like volunteering for a game I didn't remember agreeing to play. Later, after the cake and the congratulations and the hugs that smell faintly of perfume and performance, I gathered plates while Olivia posed by the rented flower wall. "Just one more," she kept telling the photographer, angling her body, adjusting her smile. The room echoed with cutlery and compliments. I stacked forks. On the drive home, she scrolled through proofs, curating as if the right sequence could fix the part where she forgot I was a person and not a prop. "You were quiet," she said without looking up. "I was thinking about the lemon pasta," I said. The joke sat on the dashboard and died there. At the house, I took the trash out, and she took her makeup off, and we both pretended none of it mattered. We climbed into bed like co-workers who used to be friends. It took 3 weeks for the first real crack to show. It arrived as an email from our bank at 2:13 a.m. "Your transfer has been successful." I sleep like a switch, either fully on or fully off. That night, the sound of my phone dragged me up from the dark. I blinked at the subject line, then at the ceiling, then at the shadow of our ceiling fan, turning the room into a slow carousel. Transfer? To where? In the morning, I made coffee and opened the laptop at the kitchen island. Olivia breezed in, wearing my old Ohio State sweatshirt, hair in a high knot, that said, "I woke up like this because I planned to." "Morning," she murmured, kissing the air near my cheek. "Busy day. I'll need the car." "We have two," I said. "The Subaru is low on gas." She opened the pantry like a curtain. "We out of the good granola?" I tracked the email trail into our joint account. A wire. $9,800 to a boutique consulting firm I'd never heard of. The kind of name that sounds like an apology. Clover and West. "What's Clover and West?" I asked. She reached past me for a mug. "It's nothing. A deposit for a pop-up event I'm doing with some influencers. You'll love it. Very clean aesthetic. You spent $10,000. Not spent," she said, smiling over her shoulder. "Invested. And besides, it's our money." "Our." The word slid across the counter and knocked into my coffee spoon. "I thought we agreed any single expense over 5 gets a quick conversation." She shrugged. "I told you I was building out my event slate this year." She kissed my forehead for real this time, a soft press that felt like a receipt. Trust me. I wanted to. I did. But I saved that email, then clicked through 3 months of statements. Small withdrawals I didn't recognize, a line item labeled C&W retainer. Uber charges during hours she was supposed to be with her sister. A new Amex I hadn't seen in the junk drawer where we kept tape, batteries, and our best intentions. That night at work, I moved buses on the board and watched red taillights slide into the dark. The depot is honest that way. Inputs and outputs you can diagram, the math of a city exhaling. I kept thinking about $10,000, and then about the $3,700 from June, the $2,000 from April. A pattern is just a secret that runs out of places to hide. 2 days later, Olivia hosted a planning session at our house for the pop-up. 5 women in ribbed matching sets clinked sparkling waters and called everything iconic. I smiled, brought a tray of hummus and sliced cucumbers, and disappeared into the basement like a polite ghost. From the bottom of the stairs, I could hear them. "Dan is sweet," Olivia was saying. "He's not entrepreneurial." Laughter, like a bell struck in someone else's church. A small thing, but small things add up. That's all a pattern is. The next morning, I pulled my credit report. That's when I found the line of credit with my name on it and her signature beside it. The slant I knew better than my own. 15,000. Opened 8 months ago. Minimums paid. Balance rising. Identity theft is a crime. Marriage makes it misunderstanding. I printed the report. I printed the transfers. I printed the contract with Clover and West and circled the words non-refundable. I didn't yell. I made lunch. I waited for the kitchen to be quiet. When she walked in, she was on the phone. "No, I told you," she was saying. We'll deliver content on Friday. The brand is obsessed with deliverables. She ended the call and tossed her phone on the counter. Can we not make a thing today? I have a walkthrough at 3. I slid the papers toward her. What is this? She glanced down, then up. It's nothing, Dan. You signed my name. I sign both of our names all the time. Dry cleaning, packages. This unlocks money. She gave me the face she saves for waiters who bring the wrong salad. Patient, pitying. Please don't do the dramatic thing. It isn't attractive. Her phone vibrated. She checked it, typed something, and reached for her keys. We'll talk tonight. We'll talk now. She stilled. The space between us tightened like rope. Fine, she said. I needed the line for the builds. The bank was being slow. Your credit's cleaner. It's just temporary. You're my husband. I thought of the laughter at the restaurant, the lemon slice, the word hour. I thought of buses sliding through the night, each with a number and a destination, each arriving when I told it to. I want every login, I said, every account. Today. She stared at me for a long time, the way you study an appliance that has started making a worrying new sound. You're overreacting, she said softly. You're tired. You've been tired for years. I want the logins. She smiled, and for a second I remembered why I followed that smile through a rented apartment and leaking roofs and the kind of fights that end with two people laughing because they've run out of words. Then she put the keys in her purse and brushed past me. I'm late, she said. Text me what you want for dinner. The door closed behind her. The house exhaled. I sat at the island and watched my coffee go cold. At 2:40 p.m., I called a lawyer. Her name was Hannah Ruiz, friend of a friend, voice like a good handrail, cool, sturdy, there when you need it. I didn't tell her everything. You never do the first time. I told her enough. Do not confront her again about the accounts, Hannah said. Document. Freeze what you can in your name. Pull 3 years of statements and put them somewhere she can't find. Set up credit monitoring. And Dan? Her voice softened. Make a separate email today. Do not use a password you've ever used before. Isn't this extreme? I asked. What's extreme, she said, is ignoring patterns because they're inconvenient. That night, Olivia didn't come home for dinner. At 10:11 p.m., she texted, running late, don't wait up. I stared at the words until they blurred, the way streetlights blur in rain. At 10:13, I changed the password on the joint account. At 10:15, I placed a fraud alert on my credit file. At 10:19, I opened a new checking account in my name only and rerouted my direct deposit. It felt like moving valuables to the top shelf before a storm you hope won't flood the house. At 1:06 a.m., Olivia's car pulled into the driveway. I watched from the dark, from the window, over the kitchen sink where I rinse coffee cups and doubt. She sat in the driver's seat for a full minute, lit rectangle of her phone, painting her face a soft blue. When she came inside, she smelled like a perfume I didn't buy. She kissed the air and disappeared down the hall. The next morning, she was sunshine. We're fine, she said, spinning a spoon in her yogurt. People borrow, people invest. I'm making something here, Dan. You signed my name. You're my husband, she repeated, as if the word husband were a universal solvent. I reached into the folder and slid a final page across the counter. A photo, her and a man I recognized but didn't know, Clover and West's principal, hand on her waist, the kind of closeness that doesn't need captions. The image wasn't damning on its own. But images don't live alone. They live in context. Her face didn't change. She put the spoon down carefully, like you'd set down a candle you suddenly realize is too close to the curtain. You had someone follow me? She asked. No, I said. Your friend tagged you. You tagged him back. There was a beat where the kitchen contained two versions of our life. The one where she explained something complicated but true, and we fixed it. And the one where she didn't. She chose the second. She reached for her phone. I'm late, she said again. We'll talk tonight. We'll talk, I said, with my attorney. She laughed. It wasn't cruel. Cruel requires effort. It was lazy. Hannah? She asked. Sophia told me you'd call her. Of course you picked the woman who hates men. My attorney, I repeated. She took her keys. This, she said, waving a vague circle in the air that included me, the counter, the house we refinanced twice to float her ventures, is boring. The door shut. The lemon on the counter looked tired. At 9:32 a.m., Hannah filed the first motion. Part 2. The Quiet War. Hannah said the hardest part wouldn't be the hearing or the paperwork. It would be the hours where no one else could see the work. People imagine court, she said, not screenshots. I spent a week collecting. I didn't break into anything. I didn't install anything. I just looked where people forget to clean. Receipts in the glove compartment. Brand lunch, $412.60. Venmo descriptions you wouldn't want, read aloud in church. DMs left open on an iPad logged into an account she assumed I never touched. A list of deliverables for the pop-up, one of which was secure mortgage pre-approval through Dan's profile. That last line made my hands go cold. I forwarded it all to Hannah. Hannah forwarded it to a forensic accountant who looked at numbers and saw maps. Meanwhile, the social performance continued. Olivia's grid showed champagne flutes and linen and the caption, "Building something beautiful." In our house, the dishwasher blinked an error code I knew by heart because I'd fixed that machine twice. On Tuesday, she posted a story about choosing kindness. On Wednesday, she screamed at me because I had moved a vase. "Everything is content," she told me once. "People need beauty. They need an aspirational spine." I didn't say what I was thinking. People also need rent. The first real blowback came not from her, but from my own people. My sister Melissa texted, "Is this about the money or your pride?" My father called and said, "Marriage is work, Dan, not accounting." I wanted to ask him if he'd ever had a line of credit opened in his name without his consent. I wanted to ask if work meant look away. Instead, I told him we were taking a breath. People like that phrase. It suggests yoga. Olivia moved the guest room into a closet with a door that shut. She began to sleep there 2 nights a week. "So I can wake up early and not disturb you," she said. The second week, she stopped pretending to come back to bed at all. I stopped pretending to ask why. When I told Hannah that Olivia had essentially moved out while still moving in, she said, "Good. Space makes documentation cleaner." Cleaner, I repeated, tasting the word like a pill. At work, I was steady. You have to be at 2 a.m. when the Route 10 bus brakes lock on East Hudson in sleet, and you're the voice in a driver's earpiece saying, "You're okay. Pump them twice. I'm with you." Men at the depot asked if I wanted in on the March Madness bracket. I said sure, and watched a team I couldn't name lose to a school I'd never heard of. In the small hours, I told myself I wasn't unraveling. I was doing inventory. 2 Fridays after Hannah filed, Olivia launched her pop-up in a downtown loft. She texted me an address and the words, "You should see what I built." I went. I wore a clean button-down and the wrong shoes. Music thumped gently. The room was all pale wood and borrowed light. Women in muted sets held expensive coffee and took photos of corners. In one corner, Clover and West's principal laughed too loudly at something Olivia said. In another, a florist explained Ikebana to a woman who already knew. Olivia spotted me and smiled like we were fine. She took my arm, the way you hold the handle on a roller bag. "See?" she whispered. "Trust me." I did what a good husband does. I took a picture of her against a wall of dried grasses. I told her she looked like the reason rooms have gold light. I didn't say, "Our mortgage payment is due Monday." At home that night, I found the email from the bank. ACH returned insufficient funds. She had quietly rerouted 3 auto pays from her account to the joint account after I changed the password. The joint had nothing in it because I had moved my deposit out. The bank doesn't care about content. The bank cares about math. I paid the mortgage from my new account and sent Hannah the screenshots. Hannah asked for a meeting. We sat at her conference table under a print that said, "Facts are friends." Her paralegal, Maya, slid a stack of paper toward me. "Here's what we file next," Hannah said. "Temporary financial restraining order. Separate accounts. Freeze discretionary lines. Discovery on any credit she opened with your profile. A motion for exclusive use of the house until we figure out where the money went." "It's our house," I said, out of habit. Hannah didn't smile. "It's an asset. Language helps." The hearing was set for a Wednesday. The Tuesday before, Olivia stood in the doorway with a suitcase. "I'm going to stay at Anna's for a bit," she said. "Okay." She looked disappointed, as if I'd failed to audition for a role she needed me to play. "You could ask me to stay," she said softly. "I could," I said. "But that wouldn't make it true." She shook her head and laughed. That same lazy laugh. "God, you're so boring lately." When she closed the door, the house didn't sigh this time. It was simply quiet. In court, Olivia wore navy and a delicate necklace I had given her the year my mother got sick. She dabbed at her eye once, the way actors do when they don't want to ruin makeup. Her attorney began with a tone calibrated for sympathy. "Mrs. Mercer," he said, "has been building a small business. Mr. Mercer is retaliating because he feels emasculated." I didn't look at Olivia. I looked at Hannah, who was looking at the judge the way you look at a bridge you know won't collapse. "Your Honor," Hannah said, "we're not here to debate feelings. We're here to ask the court to stop any further depletion of marital accounts while we sort numbers. We have documentation that Mr. Mercer's credit was used without his consent. We have vendors paid for work that never occurred. We have a line item labeled Dan's profile, pre-approval. We will be respectful. We will also be precise." The judge, gray hair, gray suit, a face that has seen versions of the same movie for 30 years, adjusted his glasses and said, "Mrs. Mercer, did you open credit in your husband's name?" Olivia tilted her chin. "I signed as his wife." "For our business?" "What business?" he asked. She faltered. Just a fraction, a glitch in the algorithm. Events, she said finally. Brand collaborations. Do you have a registered entity? The judge asked. Tax filings? Licenses? Her lawyer interjected. But the air had already changed the way a room changes when someone opens a door to weather. The judge granted the temporary order. Separate accounts. No new debt. No moving money no one could explain. He granted me exclusive use of the house. He ordered discovery on all lines opened in either name. He set mediation in 6 weeks. That's not a win, Hannah said in the hallway. It's position. It feels like a breath, I said. We drove home in silence, separately, because that's what we were now. Parallel routes headed in similar directions for different reasons. That night, I slept. The kind that makes your body heavier than the bed. 2 days later, I got the call from my supervisor. Everything okay at home? He asked, voice careful. Define okay. He cleared his throat. We got a call from someone who said you've been unstable. Anonymous. Claims you've been showing up drunk. We ran it down. Obviously nonsense. I just wanted you to know people imagine war is noisy. Most of it is whispers. I thanked him. I thanked him again. Then I sat in the depot office and watched a bus roll through the wash bay, soap sliding down steel like a kind of absolution. When I got home, a box sat on the porch. Inside, a bundle of my shirts that smelled like a house I no longer lived in. A note on top in Olivia's neat print. We need space to grow into better versions of ourselves. Please respect my journey. I looked at the word journey for a long time. Then I folded the shirts and put them in the closet I paid to build. Part 3. The reckoning mediation is where people pretend to negotiate while they practice speeches for a judge they haven't met yet. Olivia arrived with blowout hair and a hard smile. Her attorney spoke first. Mrs. Mercer proposes a 60-40 division of assets in her favor to compensate for the years she supported Mr. Mercer's career by managing the household and incubating her business. Incubating, Hannah repeated, the way a doctor repeats a patient's symptoms before ordering tests. Interesting verb. Maya, quiet as a metronome, slid a binder across the table. Tabs labeled like scalpel handles. Transfers, credit, pop-up, inside, screenshots, emails, the forged application, a spreadsheet mapping 17 months of withdrawals to a timeline of dinners, hotels, and brand retreats at properties that exempt influencers from paying because attention is currency. Olivia didn't open the binder. She glanced at it, then at me, then back at her attorney. This is punitive, she said. It's arithmetic, Hannah said. The mediator, a woman with kind eyes and a mauve sweater that said, I owned one of these in the 80s and it still works, explained in her gentle voice that the numbers were what they were, that good people make bad choices, that we could keep going and spend the next year in court, or we could do something less dramatic today. Olivia's lawyer leaned in. What do you want? He asked us, as if we hadn't already told him with the binder, the tabs, the math. Hannah didn't look at me when she answered. We've practiced this in a dozen phone calls at midnight, in emails that begin, I know it's late. Mr. Mercer wants the house, free of any encumbrances she created without his consent, Hannah said. He keeps his retirement. He keeps his pension. She takes her car and any assets related to her business ventures. She assumes the Clover and West obligations. She executes a sworn statement admitting to the unauthorized credit application. We can talk about a nominal lump sum to close, but there will be no spousal support. Olivia's laugh was brittle this time. You think you're going to humiliate me? No, Hannah said. I think we're going to stop the bleeding. We didn't settle that day. We scheduled a second session. In between, Olivia posted a caption about rebirth. I replanted the boxwood in the front yard because the old ones had died of something I couldn't diagnose. 2 weeks later, the forensic accountant returned his report. It was dispassionate and devastating. The line of credit, the wire transfers, the business that was a mood board with a burn rate, the photos, the dates, the math. Olivia's lawyer called Hannah at 8:03 p.m. We'll sign, he said. We met again in the mauve room. Olivia wore black and no necklace. She didn't look at me while the mediator summarized the terms. The house to Daniel, debt-free. Retirement and pension to Daniel. Olivia to assume all debts associated with Clover and West and the unauthorized line of credit. No spousal support either way. A sworn statement acknowledging the credit application filed under seal. Mutual non-disparagement. No social media narratives, no anonymous calls to employers, no whisper campaigns. Any comment? The mediator asked. Olivia's jaw tightened, then loosened. You'll be alone, she said quietly, as if she wished it for me like a prayer. I'd rather be alone, I said, than a prop. She signed. I signed. Hannah and the mediator witnessed. Paper makes a sound when you finish with it, a small exhale. We left with our copies in folders the color of sea glass and a silence that felt, for the first time, clean. The divorce finalized 6 weeks later. No dramatic courtroom scene, no speech from a bench, just a clerk's stamp and a scanned PDF and a subject line that said, Decree. Hannah poured 2 paper cups of bad office coffee and toasted the air. To arithmetic, she said. To breathing, I said. She smiled. Same thing. On the way home, I drove past the building where Olivia had hosted her pop-up. A real estate sign hung in the window, for lease. The dried grasses were gone. The light looked honest without them. At home, I stood in the kitchen and listened. Houses remember the people they held, but they also reset. You change the filters. You touch up the paint. You fix the hinge that always sang. You teach the space your name again. The next morning, 2 emails arrived. The first from the bank confirming the closure of the unauthorized line. The second from the city. Congratulations on 15 years of service. There would be a small ceremony in a break room under 2 bright lights where someone would hand me a certificate and a pen that writes better than it looks. I RSVP'd, yes. A week later, Melissa texted, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was like that. I stared at the words, then typed me neither, and put the phone face down. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I didn't tell anyone about the binder tabs or the look on the judge's face when he asked about licenses. I mowed the lawn. I learned how to make decent roast chicken. I took a Saturday woodworking class at the community center and made a crooked bookend that held steady anyway. One evening, I found the anniversary photo strip Olivia had insisted we take in the rented booth. In the first frame, we were laughing. In the second, we were kissing. In the third, she was looking at the camera and I was looking at her. I slid it into a drawer with warranty cards and the little Allen wrench every piece of furniture seems to think is a gift. People asked if I was okay. I said yes and meant it in the way a room means it when someone finally opens a window. Part 4, the quiet. After 5 months later, I was at the depot when a driver called in from the field. New kid, voice shaking. I've got a rider yelling, he said. I think he's drunk. Copy, I said. Keep the doors open. Keep your voice calm. Help is on the way. When you spend nights talking strangers through panic, you learn that most people don't want to hurt anyone. They just want someone to see what they're carrying. I stayed on the line until the field supervisor arrived. The kid's voice steadied. The bus exhaled and moved. On my break, I walked the yard, rows of machines sleeping in the sodium lights. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. Olivia's voice, small and tired in a way I didn't recognize. I heard about the decree, she said. I'm getting help. I'm sorry. I deleted the message and wished her the best in my head because some prayers don't need to travel far. On Sundays, I started inviting my sister and her boys for chili. The boys lined their toy cars on the coffee table and argued about nothing. Melissa brought cornbread and apologized again with her eyes. We didn't talk about Olivia. We talked about radiator hiss and school supplies and how the dog 2 houses down had learned to open its own gate. One afternoon, I drove out to the small lake where Olivia and I used to go in August when the city felt like a skillet. I sat on a splintered bench and watched a father teach his daughter to skip stones. She threw them like little prayers that didn't quite lift. The father clapped anyway. On the way home, I stopped at a thrift store and bought a cracked spine copy of The Old Man and the Sea. It felt appropriate and also like a joke I told myself. In November, I replaced the boxwoods with winterberry holly, bright red dots in a yard that had been too green for too long. When the first snow came, it fell gently, as if the sky had finally remembered how. On a Tuesday night in December, I walked into the house with grocery bags and found a plain envelope on the mat. No return address. Inside, a photo, Olivia at a different pop-up, no dried grass, no man with his hand on her waist. Just her, holding a clipboard, hair pulled back, expression set to something that looked for once like work. I set the photo on the counter, next to the lemon bowl. I didn't frame it. I didn't call. I made soup and listened to the house be warm. If you're waiting for the part where I fell in love again, it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. What did happen is simpler and also harder to explain. I stopped narrating my life for someone who needed me small. I started letting quiet be proof. On New Year's Eve, I didn't go to a party. I took a walk at 11:30 p.m. and listened to distant fireworks test the air. When midnight slid in without asking permission, I turned my face up and let a snowflake land on my tongue like a childish dare. Back inside, I wrote one sentence on a scrap of paper and tucked it in the junk drawer with the photo strip and the Allen wrench. Silence isn't surrender. It's choosing not to argue with what already knows it's wrong. A week later, the depot held the service ceremony. They gave me the pen. A woman from payroll hugged me and said, "You always sound calm on the radio." I told her the trick was picturing the person on the other end as a version of yourself you haven't met yet. When I got home, I set the pen on the counter next to the lemons and the unframed photo in the winter light, and I thought about the night at the restaurant, the laughter, the lemon slice, the sound paper makes when a chapter ends. I thought about all the ways we let ourselves be edited down to fit other people's grids. Then I poured a glass of water and sat in my own kitchen and watched the steam from the pot drift past the window like ghosts who couldn't get their story straight. I'm not angry anymore. Anger is loud and heavy. Peace is neither. Peace is a bus pulling smoothly into a stop and sleep because you talked a kid through his first winter night. Peace is a yard with red berries where boxwoods used to pretend not to die. Peace is paperwork that says you are free and a house that believes you. If you've made it this far, you already know the ending. There isn't a twist, just accountability and the quiet it leaves behind. Olivia got her journey. I got my house, my pension, and a different kind of mirror. No violence, no yelling, just math and mercy with boundaries. So here's my question, and I mean it the way a judge means it when he asks for the truth. What would you have done in my place?